Hello, everyone. I really appreciate the honor and opportunity to speak with everyone about the important topic of indigenous psychology and international or universal psychology. Through our different personal journeys, Kiki Wong and I have come to the same conclusion. We believe that what is needed most to create a science of international psychology, we need two cornerstones or two pillars. The first one is indigenous psychology. The second one is the existential psychology about human nature, about true human nature. This may be the most important hypothesis to advance global well-being and world harmony. And we hope that this hypothesis will appeal to both East and West. Let me explain my 2 points. First, regarding indigenous psychology, in a sense, all cultures are indigenous. No culture should claim to be the most dominant indigenous psychology, better than everybody else. Okay? At present, Eurocentric psychology or the weird psychology seem to dominate the entire field of psychological science. Graduate schools, textbooks, professors, journals in the West are all steeped in the tradition of Western psychology. To make the situation worse, international students come from different parts of the world and train in the West. They were shaped and indoctrinated in the Western tradition. So therefore, when they return to their own country, unwittingly, they serve as the forces to colonize every other country so that the whole world will be conformed to the Western way of thinking and looking at the world. So this is not healthy for psychology and also not helpful to the practice of psychology. It's not good for the science of psychology because it's only one-sided. It only presents one view, the Western view about the world, about human behavior. Also, because it's full of Western biases about mental illness, about symptoms, about diagnosis. As a result, the psychiatry of the clinical psychology trained in the Western tradition might not be helpful to the islanders in the Pacific area or to the native and to the Chinese. But that has been demonstrated again and again. So therefore, most people nowadays realize the need to decolonize psychology so that it will represent all people, so that it will be equally helpful to our cultures. From my research, on multicultural differences, I have systematically demonstrated the difference between East and West. It doesn't matter which area, whether it's in terms of psychological well-being, or stress and coping, or attribution, or aging. There's always East and West differences. For example, people doing attribution research and achievement find something very strange. Chinese students tend to be high achievers, but they're also high external. According to the Western thinking, you're high external, that means you're low internal. High external usually belong to the low achievers. But according to the Chinese thinking, where both high achievers are characterized by both high internal and high external. Do you know why? Because they know their success is due to their hard work. But more importantly, they also recognize it's the parents give them the gifts. A good teacher teach them well, open their mind. So their successes cannot be just to how big I am. I'm responsible for all my success. A Christian student will show a sense of gratitude and humility. So my success, I have to give credit to my parents, to my teachers, and to God for my gifts, for my training, for my success. There seems to be a better way to understand achievement, not just my ability, my hard work. Your success not just because of you. It's because of many people who care for you, who train you. Also because God gave you a special gift in some area. So how you just brag about yourself? This is one example I found about differences between East and West. So therefore, the unfortunate part is that all my research findings are wrongly, conveniently ignored and criticized by the Western self-enhancing psychologists. Similarly, K.K. Wong has done important research about interpersonal relationship, about faith and favor, about the importance of honoring your teacher, honoring your parents, the importance of happiness is due to internal harmony, inner peace, rather than more excitement, more positive emotion. I'm glad that more and more psychology come to our view. My view about mature positive psychology and his view about Chinese Mandela model. So now more and more people recognize the hallmark of true happiness is inner peace, balance, and harmony. It's not more excitement, more positive emotion. But people don't give us credit. They think they discover it. Oh, that's fine. But the point is that Asian psychology can really enrich American psychology, can really contribute to international psychology. So what is the solution? So KK and I have had many conversations during my visit to Taiwan. One thing we agree is that Asian-centric psychology is just as bad as Eurocentric psychology. We cannot only talk about Confucius, Taoism, and Buddhism and expect the Western psychologists have to learn the Chinese classic in order to understand Asian psychology. Similarly, the Western school of psychology don't require international students to be familiar with all the Western philosophies. So any focus on only one culture is not the best. So we need to balance indigenous psychology with a more universal, more international thinking about true human nature. Interesting, as a new assistant professor, my first research project is on human universals. In the very beginning, I want to find out what are the universal principles that govern all people regardless of their culture. At that time, because I'm less knowledgeable and too ambitious, so my project was a disaster. I sent out hundreds of surveys. The surveys about many pages long. Nobody returned. So the survey is a complete disaster. But the idea is in my head that in order to understand people, we need to understand what is the true nature of our human beings. We need to have a high view, a noble view about selfhood, about personhood, that make us different from animals, from machines, from computers. We're not a computing machine. We're someone who has the spirit of God, who has a spiritual dimension. So all my life, I've been searching for these essential universals. Now in my old age, I'm happy that I've been vindicated that ultimate concern about death anxiety, about fear of loneliness are universal. I also feel vindicated that the spiritual yearning for meaning, for loving relationship, for connection with God, for the need for divine protection, for a sense of sacredness, a sense of transcendental value of faith, hope, and love. Those things are indeed can be found in every culture. Interestingly, K.K. Wang also came to a similar conclusion, and he came to the conclusion that only one mind, but many mentalities. What he is saying that there's one human nature, one true human nature, but the different mindset, different way of looking at the world, looking at itself. So we need to understand both the universal and the unique indigenous psychology in order to create a psychology that's useful to most people, there's also more complete kind of psychological science. Not just yang part, it's the positive part, but yin yang, two yang side make it Tai Chi ball, Tai Chi symbol, make it whole. So I believe that this way of about two-factor approach may be our best chance to develop a truly international psychology. Thank you for your attention.